Two balls in the tray, yeah? And everything in there. I'd like to do what is that?
We're still running, guys. Diet, please. Yeah.
Here we go.
Do we need to do checks again? We're okay. Very quickly. Red light bell, please. Just watch your shadows here, folks. Thank you. And Hamish, sir? How long's that going on for out there? Here we go. Turn up, wet turn over.
Ready, 3, take 4.
And action.
Oh, get the fuck out of here, you fucking agent! Sorry. Oh, that's it. Go on, yeah, run away. If you're not back here before we're done, you can fucking walk home.
Cut it. Reset, please.
Can you be on his actual run?
Reset, keep running. Okay. So let's have a red light bell. Let's make safe and stand by the street, please. Carry on, carry on.
60, take 2.
Mark. Camera set and action. Okay, red light and bell, please.
Sean, are we good up there? Sean, are we good up there? Okay, let me know when you're off, please.
Okay. Everybody ready to walk away up there?
Sorry, check. Which
What?
lines did I load put in the new
Then just coming. Thank you. Red light and bell, please. Lock off now.
Clear the bar in the bedroom, please, bathroom.
Maybe she's happy with that piece they've put in, so they can step away. Yeah.
Step away for the moment from the bathroom.
Thank you. A little bit more smoke, Abby. Let me know when you're happy there. That's good, that's good. And just a beat, please. Clear. Turn over. And action.
What did you do? My beautiful angel. People used to give me stories. People would ask for favors. Love. Gold. There was always a price to pay. Maybe the last three slugs. Heavy duty, blow your brains out. Listen, it's just bloodshot. Let's get real close to finish him off. Kill him? No. No, this will hurt you real bad, but he'll still be alive.
That's the cup. John, you're going to be next to me, yeah? Yep. Just everybody still. Yep. At the last minute, we've got it smoked up partly. Just want to make sure when I'm live and ready to go. John, happy? Yep. Okay, Abby, a bit more smoke, please. Hamish, say when you're happy. That's good, Abby. That's good. Here we go, everybody. And okay, John. Turn over.
Rolling. Quietly, on the work.
60, take one.
Mark it.
Yeah, good. Set.
3, 2, 1, fire! Cut it. 3, 6, 1, before it gets back. And here we go now. Rehearsal and action.
Take two.
Camera set and action. Let's do it now when I'm putting that wall there. It's just a So quietly now, please. This is a rehearsal for Colm with the vehicle and the stunt doubles to show Chris and Jamie Lee how we're going to get off at the end. And Christian, sir, if you just like to watch this rehearsal, sir, because you're going to be sat in the front. You're going to be in the front with Colm. Very, very quiet. Have I got Jamie Lee yet? So, nobody move on set now, please. Nobody move on set. Nobody coming behind the van. Lock off. And when Nick and Colm are ready, we go to number ones. This door should be shut.
Okay, we'll get that.
Do this rehearsal. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Nick, when Colm's happy, let's take it back to number one. Should we get Keith to do that? And then we'll do a little rehearsal with Colm, showing Chris and hopefully Jamie Lee how to get off. Pardon the expression.
Is it easier that I start with in there just
Okay, Lewis, watch your back there. Reversing the vehicle. give it on rehearsal then. So Nick and Colm, on the day I'm going to give camera action and then a separate action for Colm. That's 2 seconds. It'll be... John, stand by us together, stand behind there. So, are you definitely going to put the fans on?
There's a getting a bit more frantic and then more things start
Watch it in if you'd like to. And 3, 2, 1, fire. Thank you.
So just take a look. Yeah, that's great.
Well, let's turn over on this. That's great. And stand by then.
Ready? Good night.
No. Thank you, gentlemen. Sorry, Hannah. Okay. Hamish, good. And you're live, Colin. You're ready to go, yeah? Turn over.
Get the board. Get the board. Okay. Set.
And action.
How close do I need to get?
Cut it. That was apart from that. Thank you. Let's set to go again, please. Yeah, I don't think...
And you can take it out, you can like swing it around and stuff. Helicopter, exactly. But it's grand, it's going great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Getting all like the...
I've been seeing, I get to see the dailies and all that.
Have you seen the fighting scene and all that? With Hannah?
What's so sweet is he killing each other and it's cut.
We did, because at one point, like I was going to just shake your throat at the very end, like that. And she was just whacking. One point she hit me in the face, and I was like, and then we stopped. And like, oh my God, are you okay? Is everything okay? We hit her off. But we said beforehand, we were like, we're gonna we're outside. We're like, let's just get stuck and we just bit the head each other. Like it really, does it really go for it? You know what I mean? And none of us were precious and all about it. We were like, let's just go for it. We just get stuck, and it was great. Like it was really enjoyable.
Well, I'm back on Wednesday and on Friday. I think one of those days. Actually, I might be talking to you on the club day, actually, because we're going to be extras.
Oh, brilliant.
Just swamping real time.
Just that one extra really loud in the back. That's Mark.
Rubbish!
Coming back to number 1. Keep it straight, Keith. Keep it straight. Don't you dare turn. Okay, thank you. Let's reload everybody, please. First petitions. Ginger. Oh yeah. Art department, or guy needs to just brush over this gravel because we can see the tire marks. Thank you. And say when, sir. Turn over.
3, 83, take 5.
Okay.
And action.
Get the fuck out of here. Go on. I'm sorry. Oh, that's it. Run away. If you're not back here before we're done, you can fucking walk home.
Good. That's a guy. Just playing back. Loose. Okay. Thank you very much. Checks are done. Preparing. What happened as you sat down, sir? I did think about it. So we're just a rehearsal of that, just a rehearsal. And okay, everyone's just rehearsing that. And action.
You never said anything about... You never said anything about the Colleen being up the duff. I see the titty fairies bees.
Okay.
Okay,
here we go then. So the checks are happy. And girls, wait, as soon as you hear Solancha, up you go, chin your glasses, really happy and smiling. You're a lovely, brotherly welcome. Okay? Otherwise, you can take Molly home. Here we go. So as soon as we can on just finishing the checks there. Thank you very much. Thank you. And turn over.
Rolling.
6.
6.
And action.
You never said anything about the Colleen being up the duff. I see the titty fairies bees.
One more word out of you, not after back.
Okay, we can't go straight away, please. Okay, hold up. And turn over.
cut good.
That's a cut. Very good, everybody. Thank you, please. And engine on, please. Happy to go, sir? Here we go. Turn over.
84, take 2.
And camera action.
Cut good, got that.
That's a cut.
Yeah, thank you.
Checks the shoot, please. Checks the shoot. And I've got a lad first, JP. JP. I think JP's going to move a couple of lamps, yeah?
Yes.
Thanks, Chris. So, boys and girls, we'll shoot this, and then we'll go to the B camera to shoot with Doug and Hannah while we start setting up for scene 62 here. This is called leapfrogging. And that waits until I've got one more shot looking back when we come out of you. So we're happy with this one. It's not very good because we've got still with the family by the top. Thank you very much. So, moving. So are we happy for the truck to go to number 1? Okay, let's take the truck to number 1. How was the queuing? How was the queuing? I'm not quite sure I did. Watch your backs, please. Truck going to number 1. Who's that? Who's moving? Can he go? Happy, Governor? Great. So, folks, oh, a quick still, please, of the family. Family here, quick still, Lewis. Right, nice. And then I need... I'll get Douglas on. So I need Douglas, please, and I need Hannah to join the big camera and the covers for her. Very quick still here, please. Carl, what's up? Yeah, that's it. Guys, once I've done this still, we're looking at the house on the air unit, not the big camera shoots. So we're looking that way, back at the house.
Just clear their light here, clear, that's it boys, just thank you.
Okay, quick as we can on this still, please. And it's Douglas travelling and Hannah, please, to the big camera. Pardon? Yeah.
lovely, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, Sean, bring it through, please.
So let's take the artists out to relax here while we start setting up the scene 61. And I need to rehearse with Douglas and with Hannah, please.
More hustle and bustle. Tell you what might be fun, shall we see if we can get a look out of that window? Yeah.
Have we got a chair for Colm, guys, please? I've got...
Yeah. Okay, because of your blue screen.
Hi, I'm Sean Harrison and I'm the prosthetic supervisor for The Little People. So about 3 or 4 months ago, Jon Wright, who directs this film, contacted me and said he got this script which he co-wrote with Mark Stay. I said, would you be interested in working on this film, doing these really cool little creatures? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I read the script and the little creatures are called the Red Cats. So here's a selection of what we've been doing so far. But to get to this stage, you've got to obviously do the concept designs and design what you think they should look like. So John, I'd worked with an amazing artist called Paul Catlin. I've worked with Paul in the industry a few times. He's incredible, and he did these really beautiful original goblin designs. So once we were given these, I mean, you know, once you see these, you just desperately want to sculpt them. So the first thing I would then say to John is we need the actors so we could get their heads to sculpt on. So once the actors were cast, the first thing we have to do with anybody is get their heads moulded. So this is a mould, this is a live cast of one of the actors. So this is Donovan Louis. So this is a plaster head of him. And then from that we remould these heads and then we produce them in a fiberglass. So they're all different materials. So this actually is what Donovan's going to be wearing. So you kind of have everyone to look completely different. So this is, we call him like the big-eyed red cap. And you go through and you see each different one. So I've sculpted 3, Paul Booker has sculpted 3. So we go through, we work them all out, we get approval from the director and producers, make sure everyone's happy with them. Once everyone's happy, we'll then go into the moulding stage. But what's interesting about this film is they're actually not this size in the movie. They're actually about half size, so they're about 2'6", 2'5" in the movie. So we have to also produce smaller versions of everything. So what I'll show you over here what we're doing at the moment. So on this table, this is we're doing a kind of a one-off version of the body, which we're going to mass produce them. So this would probably be the height they're going to be in the movie. So that's about 2'6" in height. So we want to make the hands and the head. The head's still obviously in a block out, but we're probably going to end up CGing and what's it called, 3D scanning the heads. The hands I've already sculpted and finished. Because what's going to happen is all the faces on all these characters, we're not actually going to move them with animatronics, they're all going to be digitally done. So effectively they wear static masks. And from that, Paddy Eason, who's a VFX supervisor, will actually manipulate the faces and make them snarl and blink and growl and stuff like that. So these are fairly kind of standard type puppets that we're going to make. You can use these to throw around, stamp on, kill them. Because in the film, a lot of them get killed quite violently, and obviously they kill a lot of the humans quite violently as well. This was a very early test head for Paul Warren. The colours have changed. This was a lot more kind of purples. We've gone more kind of deep browns and stuff now, which is really nice to kind of keep them into the woods. So, but whenever the actors are going to be wearing these, they're kind of lightweight. The actors, obviously, because the eyes are so far apart, because we didn't want them to look like human in any respect. So the eyes of the actor will actually look for the nostrils. So for each head we do, we've got to work out a way that the actors can see and obviously breathe and hear the director. But they're just simple kind of pull-on masks at the moment. So once they wear these, they can take them on and off. They'll have really nice hand prosthetics and hand gloves. But the majority of what we're doing on this film is red caps. We're also going to be doing the mother red cap, which we'll be doing that later on down the line. But the fun thing about this is every single one is completely different, and that's the fun thing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 so far. We've got one more head to come in, and we're going to reproduce these as well, so it makes it look like we'll have 14, 15 heads in the film. But it's just a matter of kind of just, you know, having each one look completely different. There's 2 little dots here I thought would be quite interesting to show you. That's where the actors' eyes are. So what we have to do for something like this, we can't hide them in crease lines, so we'll probably have to make holes, and the CGI department will end up painting them out because they will have to manipulate the blinks and the mouths and stuff like that. So they're quite fun things to do. But I thought I'd just give you a little insight into what we're doing so far. And then from next week, really, the next couple of weeks, we'll be moulding these and then mass producing the heads, painting them in silicone, also doing hair work. They've all got hair. They can have really nice teeth, really lovely eyes. So yeah, it's going to be a fun thing to do. And you know, we can't wait to get all these finished and kind of on set and stuff. But anyway, I thought I'd give you a little insight.
Hello, I'm Hannah John-Kamen, and I play Maya in Unwelcome. So the story of Unwelcome is about a couple, Maya and Jamie, and they live in East London in this flat, and they discover that they're pregnant, and with this exciting news, something very horrific and traumatic happens to them in London. They have a really horrible break-in, and I mean, luckily at the same time, not too long after, Jamie discovers his aunt has died, and he actually has inherited a house in Ireland. They kind of can't wait for this new life, this wonderful new prosperous life in Ireland, and you know, to raise their child as well, their first baby. And not only do they put their trust into the wrong hands in this lovely small community, but also there's these creatures that will appear. And yes, the whole kind of journey of the movie kind of happens from there. What attracted me to the film was the character, Maya. I think she's just such an incredible, interesting, strong character, and I think her journey as well throughout the movie, not only with Jamie, but I think with herself and her own sanity and her pregnancy and her growth and her kind of feral, animalistic fights that she kind of discovers within herself. Because, you know, it's just such a horrific thing that happens in the beginning. She's this very vulnerable character, but also very strong and resilient as well. And the kind of trials and tribulations that happen in the movie, it really does push them to their limits, and it really pushes, you know, the characters to their most kind of volatile, violent state. And I think that there's a wonderful kind of really interesting and a journey that she has, and also it's just a really cool story as well, and I love creature features, so. So Maya, she's a very fun, loving, loyal, caring person, and she has this beautiful relationship with Jamie. It's like a friendship, they're best friends, and it's just very fun and light, and she's got a vulnerable side, but I think what she doesn't discover how much of a maternal side she actually has to her, and you kind of will see that with, you know, not only just one, but like a few other characters in the movie. She's got this very natural loyalty that she has, and she's very resilient as well with what happens to her in the movie. Maya's relationship with Jamie, it's a very beautiful one. It's a very fun, lovely, kind of young couple. You know, you really see them just kind of in their element, and, you know, they are each other's half. You really can see that they kind of have this lovely kind of energy and bounce that they have with each other, and a lovely rhythm. I mean, what will happen is their relationship will get kind of tested and push the boundaries with what happens to them, and it kind of will show how they both kind of fight or fly in certain situations, and they really get pushed, and yeah, you will see a different dynamic with them, and they have their own journeys. It's a really interesting one. Maya and Jamie are Londoners coming into this small Irish tight-knit community, and yeah, it really sets up the kind of predicament of the movie of what happens because it's such a small community, they put their trust into the wrong hands, and also there's such a different rhythm and a different kind of uncomfortable familiarity with the locals that they all have, and a kindness that they're not used to, which I guess you don't always get in London. With that as well, with small communities in Ireland, there's a lot of folklore and kind of tales and fables, and I think the one thing that kind of strikes them at the beginning is how much the community actually believe in these creatures, in this folklore, in, you know, the red caps. I think there's a kind of like a eye-rolling, uncomfortable attitude at the beginning until they actually discover that there are creatures, and what happens not only with that but with the people that they've put their trust into, and that kind of violation of what kind of happens in that whole explosion of the movie, really. So I didn't know a lot about the mythology of redcaps, but when I kind of looked it up and started to, you know, kind of investigate what they are, it kind of describes them as these kind of murderous goblins that kill travellers and basically dip their caps in the blood of their victims, and they kind of have a need for that, and that's kind of how they do it. But in the movie, in Unwelcome, you just kind of have to gift them. They have to be fed, but you have to kind of gift them and give them offerings. And if you don't, then that's when you'll get into trouble. But they actually do come when you ask them to help. So they're not all evil, but they're just not nice. So, yeah. So the redcaps are kind of, you know, they're these kind of small goblin-like creatures, kind of, you know, the long noses, what you can imagine like a goblin to be. That's these kind of hoods. They move very fast. It's kind of a very uncomfortable, really quite frightening kind of movement and speed that they move at. So the kind of function of the movie is they will come when you ask for help, and there will be some moments where they kind of come and have a great time themselves whilst they're helping. I'm a huge horror creature feature fan. I love the Gremlins. I've just loved I just find that kind of eeriness. I find there's something about seeing the kind of like mythology or like something that's just not real but there. I think it's just always been really fun to kind of watch, and also terrifying as a kid kind of growing up with movies like that. It's interesting because with Maya, the sense of family and home is it's very important. It's a big theme in this movie. When it's violated or if it's threatened, it's kind of how far will you go to protect and save and kind of find that superhero inner strength. And I think that's a really interesting thing that she actually kind of discovers, because I think with Maya, she kind of has her identity, she kind of loses her identity, and then she kind of gains this new, stronger kind of, you know, She-Hulk-like identity. And I think it's just an incredible journey. I think that's something that we do ourselves in our own lives, with when we kind of get pushed to situations or limits that, you know, we didn't ask for. Oh, working with Douglas Booth was such a dream. I was such a fan of his before working with him, and it was just easy. It was easy peasy. It was just literally like working with someone I met and knew for years and years, even though I just met him for this movie. And he was extremely kind, extremely fun to work off and play with as well in scenes, because the way Jon Wright would work, would do a lot of improvisation as well in scenes, and it really just kind of, we both quite fearlessly jumped into the deep end, and it's really fun when you work with an actor like that isn't shy to kind of, you know, really just kind of play in the playpen and have fun. Working with Colm Meaney was just he's a funny man, he's hilarious. It was really great because kind of his character is just so menacing. I mean, he's a legend of an actor anyway, but kind of just seeing him in this role, it's like this really fun, uncomfortable role, and I can't wait for the audiences to see him play, you know, Daddy Whelan. But yeah, working with him off camera, on camera, it's like working with two different people because he's so lovely, but then he's so menacing in the movie. So, you know, it's a lot of fun. kind of seeing the whole Whelan family. So that, you know, that's Colm, Meaney, Chris, Wally, Jamie Lee O'Donnell. It was wonderful just like seeing them all in their costumes and kind of the way that they all were as this kind of real kind of nasty family. And yes, I thought they were wonderful, really wonderful to work with. Working with Christian Lin, it was brilliant. It was very intense, the scenes, and very quite personal information about Maya when, you know, she really kind of does go in, and they're very tentative scenes. And again, I mean, working with every single person on this movie, all the cast were just so easy. You know, your job's never easy, but it really was just easy to work with every single person, and they really were the character that you imagine when you're reading, you know, the script. So their characters really came off the page. Oh, working with Nicole, that was amazing. She was just quite an inspiring actress to work across, giving kind of hypnotic performances every single time. Really just made me go, you know, whenever Jon Wright would go, okay, we'll turn around. I was like, oh, don't put the camera on me. Let's keep it on her. No, it's really fun to work with her. Oh, working with Jon Wright was just such pleasure. He's so calm, his demeanour, and there's just no panic. It was so fun to work with because he had this beautiful way of working with me and Douglas, especially, where we would do a few takes, you know, to the page, to the script, and then he would absolutely let us just kind of have a freedom to really improvise, kind of do it our own way. And that was really, I mean, it is quite scary to do because it's actually a way of working that I've not done before. Actually, it was really fun, and it was very important and helpful as well, and beautiful stuff came out of that. So yeah, it was a really great time working with Jon Wright. So shooting the action fight sequences, usually in my career, it's, you know, it's very like, you know, easy with kind of Ant-Man and just, you know, learning stunts. But this time round, I'm heavily pregnant. So the stunts that happen and the kind of fights that happen, I really had to do my research on kind of being ready to pop, being 8 months pregnant, feeling the weight of, you know, having a child, and then also having that kind of extra kind of physicality to kind of to run, even giving birth. So yeah, there's a lot of stunts in this movie that was quite a first for me, so it was fun. I want audiences, I think, to feel what I felt when I read the script, and that's just to go on this incredible ride and this journey, following these characters and really just kind of, yeah, immerse yourself into the madness and chaos of it all. And yeah, that's kind of what I really want them to do, and to just kind of have a good time. I just want to say I just can't wait for the audiences to see Unwelcome. It's going to be a great movie, it's going to be a great ride, and yeah, I hope it terrifies everyone. Do you know what? Shooting the film in COVID, it's different because we shot the film, really, we were kind of one of the first ones up during the COVID that were allowed to kind of shoot. And it was really different. You know, there's different precautions that you take. So it's about kind of having a COVID test all the time and wearing a mask to set, sitting, you know, distanced away from your actors. So we're not, you know, it's not like the old days where you could all kind of get to know your actors and sit in one green room. It's kind of now a bit more spread out, and it was different. But actually I found that the pace of shooting the movie slowed down, but for me, I think in a good way, because when we shoot, sometimes it's just so fast, so quick, and no one has quite time to do anything. But actually, when you're kind of having to slow down and take precautions, it actually makes you as a character, it makes, I think, the crew just kind of slow down in I think in a good way.
I am Douglas Booth and I play Jamie. So the film is about a couple who go through something quite traumatic at the beginning of the movie, and for the rest of the film they are kind of dealing with the consequences of what happened. And they are both so traumatized that they feel they need to leave the city, they need to leave the big city and start a new life, and they are thrown a lifeline because Jamie's great aunt has just passed away, and he's very luckily inherited this house in Ireland. So they think this is a new start, this is great. as the movie continues, you begin to see things unravel a little with the PTSD from what's happened to them, dealing with being new parents or, about to become new parents. And for Jamie, more specifically, dealing with what it means to be a man, what it means to be able to protect your family, what it means to be able to, just the whole concept of masculinity. As human beings, as a civilization, I think we've come on to a certain extent where you're allowed to have more facets to your personality. I definitely think in my relationship now, we share those responsibilities. I feel just as much protected by her as she is protected by me. And that's a liberating feeling. What attracted me to this film? My agent Kate Stadden, she called me and she went, there's this movie about murderous leprechauns. And I just sat down, and from page to page to page to page, I just literally couldn't put it down. And I just went straight through it and I went, this is unlike anything I've ever read. It's completely mad, really brilliant. It's entertaining, but it also has like a great heart to it. It felt like it was a genre film, but a genre film that really was trying to say something about human beings and what kind of lies within us. I remember standing on my balcony just being like, oh, I can't wait. It's going to be funny. There's lots to play with here. There's lots to... Yeah, it is a fun character. Jamie is an everyman, but he's someone that has to figure himself out a bit, I think, and he does that through the course of this movie and what his role needs to be within his family and what role he needs to play within his relationship. So I think everyone will recognise parts of themselves in Jamie. I think he's just madly in love with her. I think his relationship with Maya is very much one of trust and understanding, but then, as I said before, things happen in the movie that really test those boundaries to the limit, and they have to see whether they can survive and whether they can come together and actually become a stronger, unit. Maya and Jamie are very much outsiders, coming into this tight-knit community in Ireland, and it lends itself in a fun way because you've got these two young millennial city types coming into a very rural Irish background, and that allows for a clash of culture and a clash of understanding that is quite entertaining at times. And it gives them something to navigate, but also something they kind of look up to and admire in a way. It's a simplicity of life, but then you start to see the cracks where things aren't quite as hunky-dory as they appear. So what I knew about the mythology behind the Red Caps, not that much. I remember I made a movie called Noah in Iceland. We shot a lot of it in Iceland with Darren Aronofsky. And I remember when I was on the plane over, the TV in front of you on the plane said, kind of was giving facts about Iceland. It was like, not quite sure the exact percentage, but it was like 75% of people in Iceland believe in fairies, giants, and trolls, which blew my mind at the time. But when you actually got there, it didn't seem as strange as it sounded on my way in. It was so very much deep rooted in their history and their spiritual beliefs and their connection to the land. If they wanted to move a rock or something, they would always bless it first, and I kind of loved that respect that they show to the land. And I think that in Ireland there is a similar thing. There's a lot of respect and investment in their folklore and in their history and in the land that they live in. They're very proud of it. It's fun to use your imagination, and maybe we need a little more of that today. So the Red Caps, they're these little people that live in the forest at the end of our garden. The deeper meaning of them is they represent the inner depths of our darker soul. They sort of represent a lot of that, a lot of the darkness out there in the world. I've never been like an avid horror movie fan, but I think that's because I think I was shown the wrong films growing up. I was shown like Hostel, Saw, things like this, and which terrified me as a child. So I've always been, I really like movies like The Shining and psychological thrillers. And to be honest, I haven't seen enough monster movies, which was kind of also what I think drew me to this film. I was like, this is great. So I'm going to be a new fan of this genre. So working with Hannah was a dream. She is really hardworking and one of the most relaxed leading ladies I've ever worked with. She's just seems to go with the flow, and she has a great raw energy about her. Really talented actress. It was a great pleasure to work with her. Colm's a laugh. Colm Meaney is so funny. He's one of those guys that you just like, as soon as you want to cut, you want to like sit down next to him and hear all his stories. He's got lots of them. He's extremely generous as an actor, very kind, and he's just got that thing. He just oozes out of him. Yeah, he's a great pleasure to work with. He kept us laughing on set all the time. Chris Wally and Jamie Lee O'Donnell are exceptionally brilliant. Chris is a couple of years younger than me, and he came straight out of drama school, won an Olivier Award, and he's just got his own TV show. And now he's like this young, pent-up, brilliant ball of talent. When you just released him on set, it was like, any scene he's in is just, he elevates. And the same with Jamie Lee, they just bring so much. And I think some of my favourite scenes in the movie were filmed with them, and they're really good fun to work with. Christian's fun. I mean, the Christian, firstly, he's such a gentle giant. He's such a lovely, lovely man. But I remember when he first walked onto set, I texted John going, "Fuck me, he's huge." He's absolutely massive. I've never seen a man of that stature before. He brought some really interesting dynamics to scenes that I didn't think were even going to be there. Jon Wright, the director, is absolutely brilliant. He has this great quality about him where he's so calm at every moment. He knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't overshoot anything because he knows what he needs. I just felt so comfortable with him. I really, really enjoyed working with him. He's very generous to the actors by giving them the space they need to try and get to the places they need to be. I genuinely have never felt more comfortable on set with a director than I did with him. He was great, and he's a really good guy. So he's 10 out of 10 for me, 100%, and I'd love to work with him again. Shooting the action and the fight sequences was great fun. They were sort of very kind of often were kind of, it was very hot. I felt like the first half of the movie, I don't know when we shot, the time of the year we shot it, was very hot in the beginning and freezing cold at the end. But the fights seemed quite intimate and intense and rough. I remember them being I remember just being knackered. I hope the audience come away feeling that they've seen something that they haven't seen before, something quite unique. I hope they've related to parts of the journey that these characters have gone on. And I think these characters definitely, a good movie is when the characters start as one thing and they end up as something very different. And I think you get that in this movie, and I think they will hopefully enjoy the journey and the arc and the world that these characters fall through and the people they come out at the other end. Shooting a movie during COVID everything is completely different and everything is completely the same. The connections you sometimes have with people, it was harder to maintain because you couldn't sort of see people's full face or hug each other or do any of that. But ultimately, it was still just as creatively fulfilling, and you still had laughs and stuff. But I think it's hardest for the crew because actors are very fortunate that when you're acting and stuff and filming or rehearsing during the day, you don't have to wear your mask. So I think it was a lot harder for being on a hot stage, working 12, 14-hour days. But yeah, it's what is it, the word? New normal that you kind of have to get used to. But hopefully the mask will go soon because it's sort of depersonalized, makes it a little less personal. So.
My name's Jon Wright. I'm the director of Unwelcome. The idea started life as a conversation between myself and the writer Mark Stay, where we were talking about the fact we were pacifists. So when I was a kid, my dad, who was a two-fisted working-class Irishman, took me out in the garden to teach me how to box, and I had to break it to him. And he was extremely disappointed that I was a pacifist. And I consider myself a pacifist for most of my life, and it was just in this conversation with Mark, we both realised that where it came to our family, we might make an exception. So if somebody were, for example, to attack my 11-year-old son, I would respond violently, and I would probably respond in a very violent way, like it would be extreme violence designed to bring that conflict to an abrupt resolution. And that paradox, that sort of irreconcilable difference between being a pacifist who'd commit violence was the seed of the idea. And that led us to cook up this story about a couple who find very violent goblins living in the wood at the foot of their garden. So it's a horror movie, and it's a creature feature. I think because it's a creature feature, it's got some humour and a lightness of touch. It never goes to a morbid or depressing place. It's always entertaining, but it can be extremely violent. The film is a modern-day fairy tale in a way, a very dark fairy tale for adults, not for children. And that was intentional. We read a lot of Irish myths and legends, and we looked back at the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen, and I'd like to feel it has the look of a fairy tale as well. It's in that sort of Tim Burton-y space where you're in a sweet spot between reality and unreality. So the red caps are goblins who live in the wood, and they're magical creatures, so they're not entirely living in the real world. They sort of have a foot in the real world and a foot in the magical world. And they're about half the height of a human, and they have dark brown, grey skin, and they're kind of evil looking, I suppose. The red caps in the movie represent violence in a way. They are very violent, and they're primal and animal and bestial, and that's the side of ourselves that as civilised people we ordinarily keep repressed. John Beard was our production designer. He's an old school legend. So he's worked with all kinds of people. He started with Terry Gilliam on Brazil. And he's very experienced, and he brought all of that knowledge and experience to building this incredible house set. We had a front garden, a back garden, all of the interiors. And we were able to light it in a very controlled, specific way, which gives it what I think of as a fairy tale look. It feels like a dark fairy tale. So it's neither out and out unrealistic, and it's not grittily realistic either. It's sort of in a sweet spot in the middle where it feels a bit dreamlike and fairy tale-like. The red caps are a sort of hybrid between digital and analog. So on the one hand, we shot full-size actors dressed as red caps on double-size sets, which give the illusion of people that are half-size. But they were wearing static masks, and rather than use animatronics to animate those masks, we've tracked them and added CG faces directly over the masks that are an exact match to the original masks, so that they can blink and talk and emote. And we had an actor called Rick Warden who played all of the red caps, and we motion captured his face and used his performance and his vocal performance to act as a guide for the animators when they were animating the face. So we've kind of got a hybrid of a bunch of different techniques, which I think put the red caps in a place where we've made it hard for you to work out how we've done it. And we've got the best of all worlds, so they don't look light and sort of, their gravity doesn't look strange in the way that CG sometimes does, because they are actual real people that we shot. But they don't have the problems that sometimes characters with masks do, where the masks don't really move in a very lively way and they don't look very alive, because we slaved the animation to the performance of an actor. So it'll be interesting to see what people make of the red caps. When I was a teenager, I loved all horror movies, and I watched them all. I kind of was obsessed at that age. I'd say now that I'm older, I still love horror, definitely, and I love creature features as well. But I prefer the good ones. And I like my films now to be driven by character and story and to have themes and if they have something to say. And what I love about the new wave of horror, whether it's Hereditary or Get Out or one of those type of movies, is that they have something to say and they have themes and they have some depth. And they're still horror movies, and they still make you jump, and they still have scares and gore and shocks and all of those things, but they also are interesting films in their own right. This is a film about a woman who sees herself as a pacifist, and we put that to the test. We basically say to this character, no, you're actually capable of violence in certain circumstances, and we basically put that character through the ringer and challenge all of her beliefs and kind of force her to become a violent person and embrace her violence. That's what the movie's about. Unwelcome was influenced by some old films and some new films. So I'd say a film like Gremlins had a big effect on us because it was pint-sized creatures who are malevolent and mischievous, and they're tricksters. And also Straw Dogs, in that we have a home invasion, a very famous home invasion with a nerdy character battling alpha males, and we've sort of done our version of that. And I'd also say the movie's very influenced by the new spate of horrors, the recent horrors from Hereditary and Midsummer and Get Out and Don't Breathe, and a whole bunch of films that I've really enjoyed, and it's really got me back into horror and excited about horror as a genre again. The fact that these films have themes and they have politics and sociological ideas that they talk about under the surface. So our film is that. It's an update, a revision of those old movies. Hannah is incredibly collaborative and really engages with you as a director and almost mines your brain for more and more information. And pretty much every day on set with her, she would do something that would astound me or surprise me, or I'd just think, wow, you know, this woman is an incredible actress. So it's no surprise to me that her star is rising and that her stock is rising and she's getting into bigger and bigger films, because I think she is the real thing. Doug Booth is he's a very handsome man, and in that way he's handsome enough to be a leading man, but he's actually got the soul of a character actor. He is much more interested in exploring the truth of what it is to be a human being than he is in playing kind of cardboard cutout heroes. So in this film, he certainly does that. He plays a craven coward, you know, a real scaredy cat, somebody who is almost the antithesis of a hero, an anti-hero almost, who can't cope with what happens to him and finds himself panicking and terrified. And Doug absolutely goes there. He commits 100% to doing that, and doing that honestly and truthfully in a way you rarely, if ever, see in cinema. It only comes around occasionally. So I'm very proud of him and grateful to him for being the actor to step up and do that and play the truth of this story. There was a very short list of actors who I felt were good enough and who had the charisma and the presence to play Daddy Whelan. Colm Meaney was at the top of that list, and very happily he said yes when we offered it to him. Daddy Whelan is an alpha male. He's big, he's gruff, he's violent, and he's very frightening, and we needed somebody who could embody all of that. But also Colm looks like an Irish builder. I mean, he has that look about him. He doesn't look like a Hollywood A-lister, which he sort of is after Deep Space Nine, you know. So he was amazing, and he brought lots of fun to the set. He was very funny to be around and a very fun presence on set. Playing the Whelan family, we have Chris Wally from The Young Offenders playing Killian. We have Jamie Lee O'Donnell from Derry Girls playing Aisling. And we have Christian Nairn from Game of Thrones playing Owen. So that's a fantastic little ensemble there. Brilliant character actors with a lot of comic chops, a lot of comic timing. So the Whelans are terrifying and funny in equal measure, and I think those three actors really let rip and went to town and really enjoyed themselves with the material we gave them, and gave us probably twice as much as was on the actual page. We use the same trick that they use in The Omen, where whenever you've got an actor who turns up and they've got something that's pretty ludicrous to say, they give it to a fantastic actor. So they give Patrick Troughton these huge big speeches in The Omen where he says the most ridiculous stuff about the devil coming back to Earth. And we've done the same thing here in Unwelcome with Neve Cusack. Whenever we have speeches about gremlins and goblins and magical sacrifices and ludicrous high concept stuff, we give it to Neve because she is such a good actress and she completely believes it when she's saying it, and she gets you to believe it in the audience. So we're very lucky, we're very blessed in a way. And it's partly to do with COVID, I think, unfortunately, that actors of Neve's calibre were available and willing to play the parts that we offered them in the film. Delighted that she said yes, and she really adds a whole other level to the movie. The graph of the movie sort of starts like this. It's a slow burn, and it builds, and the tension rises, and the violence increases, and eventually it's a bit like a ski jump. It sort of goes vertical at the end. And that very final scene was really quite something. It was very strange and crazy, and the day on set when I shot it really struck me how it felt like the most surreal, unreal, psychedelic thing I'd ever shot. And I kept feeling like somebody would come up and tug me on the elbow and say, "You've got to stop, you know, you can't do this anymore." But nobody did stop me. So I hope when it cuts to black and the credits roll, people will remember that final scene, and they'll remember the experience of seeing it and probably not expecting it. I don't think anyone's going to expect that. So ultimately, I think COVID was a positive, believe it or not, because we did lose stuff, and in particular, we had to wear masks, which is not good when you're trying to communicate with other people. On the other hand, we had a fantastic crew who wouldn't have ordinarily been available. We got to shoot near to Pinewood and Shepperton and got to use all of those people who are these incredible craftsmen. We got an amazing cast that we maybe wouldn't ordinarily have gotten. We got to build a giant house set. As a result, we had a very controlled look, and we shot very quickly. We got to do a lot of takes in a way that we probably wouldn't have been able to do. So I think, on balance, ultimately, this is a better film because we shot it during COVID, which is hard to believe, but it is the truth. My line producer went through at great length all of the risks that we were taking by making this film during COVID, and she laid it all out for me in bullet points. And in the end, I said to her, "Look, I think there's something you're missing here, which is, yes, I get paid for this, but I do it for fun. I direct for fun, and I always have. I do it because I love it and because it's creative, and I'm a creative person. I need to express myself, and that's how I do it. So I don't really have a choice. You know, if we've got to wear masks and we've got to do tests and we've got to go through these funny protocols, and that's what we've got to do. You know, I don't want to be somebody who waits for COVID to end before I direct something else." Now, in the end, in the final reckoning, we took some risks shooting during COVID, and maybe with hindsight, those risks were bigger than we realised, but we came out the other end. We were lucky. The movie gods were smiling on us, and they allowed us to finish the film and finish it in fine style. And I actually genuinely believe the film was better in a lot of ways for shooting during COVID.
I'm Mark Stay, and I'm the writer of Unwelcome. The story of Unwelcome is about Jamie and Maya, a young couple just starting out. They're about to have a young family. They have a terrible experience in their flat in London. Jamie inherits a house on the west coast of Ireland, and they move there, and in this house is a beautiful garden. At the bottom of the garden is a wall, and in the wall is a door, and next to the door is a little hole where you leave offerings for the little people, the Fardarig. And if you miss an offering, things will go horribly, horribly wrong. It started with a conversation about violence. John and I are basically a pair of wusses. We're pacifists, you know, we don't like fights, it gives us the shakes. This is something we kind of confess to each other, but we love violence in movies, whereas the women in our lives tend to be quite fierce and tend not to put up with any nonsense, which is where that "don't mess with Mama Bear" line comes from in the film. And we wanted to take this idea of taking someone who's a pacifist, a peaceful person, who will always try and find a peaceful solution, try and open a dialogue, but keep pushing them and testing them and testing them and pushing them to the limit, and seeing how they react very differently. Maya and Jamie react very, very differently, and we threw some psychotic goblins into the mix. Unwelcome is a monster movie, a creature feature, which I love. I've, you know, from American Werewolf, Jaws, More recently, films like Grabbers, which John directed and was written by Kevin Lahan, really, really good. The ones that really work for me are the ones that have some kind of human heart to them as well. You know, you look at a film like The Host by director Bong Joon-ho. You know, it's a story about family, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to put a story with a big heart in the middle of it. I always think with horror films, if you took the horror out of it and you've still got a good story at the heart of it, I think that is what makes it work. John and I have both been looking for an Irish mythology story to tell for a while. John was born in Ireland. My mum's side of the family are all from Ireland. We'd grown up hearing all the stories, and we just thought it was this big, rich, untapped seam of story, which I don't think anyone's really done. I mean, the cartoon saloon people are doing films like Wolf Walkers and Song of the Sea and what have you. And then we came across the Far Darrig, and we thought, yeah, there's a story in this. Well, the red caps in our story are based on the Far Darrig, which in Irish mythology wear red caps, but they're more playful and mischievous. They play pranks on people. And I'd seen red caps in other books. There's C. Robert Cargill's books, Monsters and Shadows, and an author I really like, Kit Cox. He uses them in a book called Morningwood, but they were kind of supporting characters. I wanted to bring them to the fore, and they represent the id to our ego. You know, they are the violence within us that comes out. And that's the thing, in this mythology, if you call for them, they will come and help, but there's always a price to pay, and that price is like opening Pandora's box. You've unleashed a violence within, and there's no putting it away again. Oh, most definitely. I mean, I love anything with monsters and goblins and creatures in it. They're always a great way of showing ourselves in a kind of warped reflection of ourselves, you know. So when you see the gremlins, when you see the grabbers, when you see creatures like werewolves and what have you, they're always a dark, shadowy side of ourselves. The themes of Unwelcome, well, apart from the big theme of violence, family and home are really important to the story, because they're really, really important to me. The idea of feeling unsafe in your own home and your family being under threat is something I think a lot of people will relate to as well. I mean, we talk about the Far Darrig as the monsters, but actually the real monsters in this are the humans. And there's a reason that the Far Darrig have little hoods and look like little hoodies, which you'll see when you watch the film. And with the Whelans, we have a family that ruins it for everyone else, that is spoiling for a fight. And I think no matter where you live, there's always a family like that you know, makes life miserable for everyone else. So monsters, I'm fine with. Humans, I take them as they come. And there was a really, really sweet moment where we were shooting in the pub, and our first AD, Terry Bamber, he was geeing up the supporting actors, the supporting artists, and he was saying, you know, this film is about standing up to bullies. We have to stand up to bullies. And it hadn't even occurred to me, but he's absolutely right. That is one of the big themes of the film. We pitched it initially as Gremlins meets Straw Dogs, and Gremlins creature feature, probably one of the best ever. Straw Dogs, which I did go back and rewatch, which does leave a bad taste in the mouth. It's not aged terribly well, but it has this home invasion, which is just absolutely terrifying because it's so slow and methodical. It's not people smashing through doors. It's just they're there in your living room and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's that's more chilling than any monster you can imagine. Another big influence, this is a strange one. I doubt there's many horror movies based on this, but it's Mike Leigh's Nuts in May. There's a bit in that where Roger Sloman, who plays Keith, who has a complete breakdown at the end. And you don't see that very often in movies. You don't see that very often from the person who's supposed to be the hero. And we wanted to explore that, where you take a peaceful person and bend them till they snap. John and I have a really good working relationship. We've known each other for about 15 years now, and we sit there cackling like naughty schoolboys as we think of new and inventive ways to make our protagonists' lives an utter misery. And he's very, very generous with his support, and he knows all my tics. He knows all my bad habits. He doesn't let me get away with anything. So whenever I work with him, he always brings out the best in me. And that's all a writer could ask for. I want to boil the audience like a frog. bear with me on this. The setup is fairly familiar. You've got a young couple, moves to a new house, there's monsters at the bottom of the garden. You might have seen movies like this before, you might have expectations. It's my job as the writer to subvert those expectations. So things will start fairly normally. We have a couple very much in love, and it starts getting stranger and stranger, and then in the final act, we whack up the gas, things get very hot, you start panicking, looking around, you're scared, you're terrified, and what I want from the audience is for them to spill out into the lobby, clinging onto the people they've just seen the movie with and going, what the hell did I just see? If I get that, then I'll be very happy. I think considering we were one of the first films to go into production during COVID, I think it was done brilliantly. Every precaution was taken. It didn't help when someone on set tested positive. I didn't have it either. It was a false positive, but then they tested the whole cast and crew, and someone tested positive, so we had to shut down for 2 weeks, and that was a really, really scary time because I wasn't sure if the film would start again, if we'd have time to finish it. Other people in the cast had other shows to go to and what have you, so it was a real nail biter. But cast and crew were just impeccable. Me, I had to stay here after that. I basically isolated in this room, did some writing and watched Ted Lasso, which was a result. But yeah, I think we will look back on this time, this very, very strange time, and wonder how on earth we ever got it made.
So I am Piers Tempest, and I'm the producer of Unwelcome. So the story is brilliant. So there is a young couple, Jamie and Maya, who live in London, and they start to get terrorized by local youths. And they feel we've got to move out of London. At that time, Jamie's aunt leaves him a house in a very remote location in the middle of a forest in Ireland. So they go and move over there looking for the quiet life and looking for the rural idyll. However, at the end of their garden is a wall, and behind the wall is a gigantic forest. And in the wall, there is a very small door, and they have no idea what it is. And then they get told they must leave a little meat offering, and they think this is completely mad, it's bonkers, what possibly could, it's just Irish superstition. And that is the setup of the film. Once they realize that actually it's not a superstition, there is something in the forest, that's when the fun and games starts. Well, the idea came from the writers, Mark Stay and Jon Wright, and I'd previously produced a film called Robot Overlords, which Mark wrote and Jon directed, and also I produced a film called Grabbers, which Jon directed, so we were all in a working group. And at the beginning of the COVID 2020 lockdown, Jon sent me the script of, as it was called then, Little People, which we renamed Unwelcome. And I thought this is a fantastic film to try and get off the ground during the lockdown. It says a lot of deeper things about society as a whole. It's great fun, I think very commercial, and it's right up, given we've done creature movies before and we've shot this type of film, I was very confident that we could do really over-deliver and make it a fantastic viewing experience. Well, the red caps read like very scary gremlin type characters. And I think Jon was the one person who I think would really embrace creating the red caps. And so we collaborated with Paul Catling, who's a fantastic concept artist, who's worked on everything from Iron Man to Harry Potter to Star Wars. So he started creating some concept sketches for them. Then we worked with Sean Harrison, who is a creature designer, to actually design and mold the models for red caps. And given we were an independent film, we felt that we had to be clever in the way we created the red caps, which was not spending millions and millions of pounds creating a full 3D visual effect solution to build the red caps. We wanted them to be physical and to have physicality. So we combined various new methods, which was essentially having actors wearing the red cap masks at full size in double-size sets, and also using blue screen to actually get the physicality of the red cap, so they felt very real, very present, and very dangerous. And then we used new motion control techniques to animate the faces, which the visual effect team under Paddy Eason, who had previously worked with Robot Overlords and Grabbers, led on. And it's worked extremely well, and they've got a very real and unnerving presence, which is exactly what we were aiming for. So I'm really happy we used this sort of amalgamation of different techniques. Well, the red caps they look like goblins, really, sort of knee-height goblins, which actually they each have their individual characters. We've tried to make each one of them their own, so that they're not just amorphous, sort of generic creatures. We've tried to imbue them with character. So you'll see they all look very different, yet they're part of a red cap family. There's a big plot twist in the film, but which I won't say what it is, in case you haven't watched it. But there is a big plot twist, which I'm hoping the audiences don't see coming. So the production design and the look and feel of the film was actually very different from what we normally do, because when I got the script, I was thinking, we'll go and film this on location in Ireland, and we will find a house in a forest and, you know, do it all on location. But with the 2020 COVID lockdown, that wasn't possible. So what we decided to do was build the house and the garden in a stage outside London. And that actually, I think, has been a really, really good idea, because other than giving us much more ability to shoot at night and to give it a real identity and just be very focused on the visual effects and the camera angles, it also creates quite a weird atmosphere, a la Sleepy Hollow. There's something unnerving about the whole house and the garden and the way we've integrated all the aerial photography into what we've been shooting on the stage. So it's got a very strong look, and lots of references that the director of photography, Hamish Doyne-Ditmas, was using, such as, you know, it can be Cape Fear. There's all, you know, we've really tried to go for a very strong imprint and identity for the film, which I think has worked brilliant, especially for this type of film. And, you know, films like sort of Midsummer, again, are shot with that type of sort of, you know, slightly unnerving sensibility. And that's what we've sort of tried to go for with the film. And John Beard's production design is fantastic. I mean, he's a brilliant production designer, and he's created a really atmospheric house, which is spooky. Yeah, I actually really love the whole look and feel of the film. I think it's worked incredibly well. So with the red caps, we're using an amalgamation of techniques, primarily so that they feel incredibly real, and they have a weight and a density, and they interact in a very real way. We don't want them to feel fake, because in order to feel dangerous, the audience really needs to feel they're real. So what we did was we shot full-size actors wearing the red cap masks and outfits against double-sized sets and against blue screen, which we could then shrink down into the red cap size, which is sort of knee height. And then the visual effects guys, then under Paddy Eason's and Seb Barker's instruction, then animated the red caps to give them all individual characters and emotions, which I think work incredibly well. What I did, I produced a film called Grabbers with John, which had amazing creatures in, and that was with the same team, actually, with Paddy Eason and Paul Catling, the concept designer. So we've done it before, and they're great fun. And I think, I love sort of, you know, bringing something different and very original to the table. And I think with the red caps, we definitely have done that. Well, there's a lot going on in the film thematically. I mean, what I love is what it says about the relationship between men and women. As our character, Jamie, constantly surprises the viewer As in a normal film, one would expect him to take the mantle, the full character arc where he's the one that's beaten in, he can't protect his wife, and then he trains and he finds himself and then he becomes the hero. That's not what happens in this film. And that's what I love. So it's kind of, so it really subverts that kind of traditional character arc genre in a really fresh and exciting way. And it's about identity, and it's about being accepted into a community, and it's about finding yourself, and all those things are great. So films like Midsummer, Us, those kind of films, and then some of the older movies like Cape Fear, just in terms of the way we've stylistically gone to give it a very strong identity, even Sleepy Hollow. And then with John's and Mark's writing, there's a bit of humour in there as well, which I think one needs. So we want it to be, it's primarily scary, but we want those lighter moments as well. And there are some fantastic scenes, which give you that, stretch the genre a little bit. Jon is fantastic to work with. I love working with Jon. It's my third film with him as a director, and he is extremely focused. He understands what he wants very, very clearly. So I've never worked with such a well-prepared director. Comes in, he knows what he wants, and he's just got such a good understanding of the genre and of what he wants to achieve on screen. So it's great. It's really good, and he's very low maintenance as a director. So he just gets on with it, and we have fun. Unflappable as well, which is good, especially shooting during COVID, which is a bit stressful to say the least. So having Jon at the helm meant I didn't have to worry too much about what was going on set, and we just had to deal with all the other stuff that was going around. When we cast Hannah John-Kamen, I was delighted because she is an incredible actress, operates in the genre space, and her body of work is absolutely just on point for where this film should sit. Yeah, literally, I think her performance is amazing. You really emote with what she's going through, and I can't think of many other actresses that can pull off the character arc of what happens in Unwelcome. It's like, if you look at what happens from the beginning to the last scene of a movie, it's pretty extraordinary acting. So she's an amazing actor. Douglas is great. Absolutely loved working with Douglas. Really fantastic. The poor Douglas gets beaten constantly throughout the film, and he was always up for it, and he completely got the character, and he's fantastic. Again, once you made the film, you just can't think of anyone else who would do that role. So yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to work with Douglas again. He's fantastic. Colm is great. I worked with Colm previously on The Journey. It's great watching him work, and he's absolutely got it. Knew the character, totally up for it. He comes to a sticky end, and he's a fantastic actor to watch. So we had a fantastic supporting cast on the film with Chris Wally, Jamie Lee O'Donnell, Christian Nairn, and they were all absolutely up for it, and very much sitting there on set, watching them, just enjoying the performance, because it's great fun. So I would love audiences to come out of a cinema having a fantastic experience. This, the lockdown year has been challenging, to say the least, for everyone. And I think, getting back into the cinema, seeing a great movie like this with an audience and everyone enjoying it, that's, and coming out and hopefully loving the movie and having gone through all the excitements and scares and humour of it, I think if that gives everyone a fantastic couple of hours, then we would have really succeeded. Producerially, not fun at all, because every day we were testing everybody, we were working under really strict COVID protocols with masks and cleaning everything. So I mean, that's literally every day for the entire shoot. It was that pressure of, will we be shut down? We did get shut down. One person did get COVID on our film, who will remain nameless, and we did have to shut down for 2 weeks. And it was, so it's a bit challenging, but we got through it. And I always think that in a crisis, it brings out the best in people. So I mean, we had a fantastic cast and crew, and everyone was really supportive. And everyone could have stayed at home and hibernated, but everyone decided to come out and make the movie. And ultimately, that's very inspiring.
My name is Hamish Doyne-Ditmas, and I'm the cinematographer or director of photography for Unwelcome. So the visual approach to the cinematography was, I mean, obviously once I'd met Jon, and I obviously hadn't worked with him before, and it was obviously a wonderful opportunity for me to sort of be given this wonderful gift of making this film. I've always loved those old, again, going back to sort of some of the sort of Freddie Francis. I mean, I think I looked at Cape Fear, which he did with Martin Scorsese, and The Elephant Man. I mean, he always shot CinemaScope, not always, but most of the time he shot CinemaScope. And I've always been a big fan of those big wide frames. And basically, we shot this film, I think, with probably 3 or 4 lens sizes. I mean, an E28, a 35, a 50. And then you'll notice in the film, I did have one zoom lens, which was quite nice, because I often just do these very slow creeping zooms, just sort of emotionally sort of pulling you in and then sort of pulling you out, and then sort of leading your eye to what's interesting. And I think going back to the shooting it on a wide aspect ratio and doing it on a wide lens, I do think as an audience member, it's really lovely to be able to look at the frame and decide what part of the frame you want to look at, or if there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 characters, and obviously there's a family that in Ireland there's a family that gets to become involved with this young couple. Again, Jon and I's sort of taste is to actually have these sort of slightly wide frames and sort of hold the action in a wide, where you can decide really where you want your eye to go, rather than a close-up where you're being told exactly where to look and what to feel. So we sort of went down that sort of feeling of that. If you look back at Rosemary's Baby or Chinatown, those films were made on sort of 2 or 3 lens sizes, and I think it's very good for the audience, because you know the geography where you are, and you sort of know the space that you're in, and if you want to do a close-up, just move the camera closer, but you can still feel the world around them. So again, I think I did look at some old horrors that I love, and as I said, Jon's a big horror fan as well, so we did look at some of those older films, and we sort of looked at them and thought, well, why do we like that style? And maybe it's not, say, more of an old-fashioned thing, but I think it's classy. I mean, for me, I just prefer it, and I think we were very lucky. We had amazing support from Panavision, and we managed to shoot on the Primo anamorphic lenses. I mean, they're very big in size, but that's fine, because it wasn't a handheld film. That was another decision we made early on to sort of keep it quite classic. Again, another wonderful thing that my wonderful gaffer Dan Lowe was able to do for me was that we had a screen that encompassed the entire stage. It was like a 360-degree screen made out of a sort of a grey-type material, which you could backlight with sky panels, and you could create colours that could actually be skylight colours. That was fantastic. And then towards the end of the film, not giving anything away, we were definitely able to push some quite fun things to do with the screen. So yeah, I was there again. I was such a positive experience shooting it on a stage. So yeah, very, very happy, very excited. Are there any specific films that I've watched that really help shape the look of Unwelcome? Yes, I did mention them before, but I think probably The Night of the Hunter. Cape Fear is another film that I love that Freddie Francis did that probably influenced it a little bit. Vittorio Storaro uses colour a lot, and I think, again, towards the end of the film, The Exorcist, so you'll notice on the night exteriors it has this kind of sickly green type colour that's come straight out of The Exorcist, because Owen Roydsman used it on that, and I love that slightly sickly green moonlight just has a slightly, because you can obviously use a more bluey or a whiter moonlight, but there's something about the slightly greeny moonlight. It's a bit nasty. So that was another film. But no, I think really it's an amalgamation of lots of films. I think it's just sort of different moments. I think Brian De Palma, I mean, again, I don't want to sort of give away the end at all, but the last sequence is very Brian De Palma-esque, whether you've seen Carrie or, well, all of his early films, again, with colour and light and all sorts going on. And maybe even a bit of that Italian, is it Dario Argento, the famous Italian. Again, he used, if you look at the original Suspiria, late 70s, he was amazing at using colour. So again, I do love with this film how it definitely goes through a journey of colours and light and again, just tries to sort of take you on a ride and yeah, have fun. Am I a horror creature fan, and what do I like about the genre? Yes, I am, very much so. Well, one of my earliest memories of films was when I was 6 years old. One night, I sneaked downstairs. I couldn't sleep. I sneaked downstairs and I turned on the television and I started watching this film. I could see very early on that there was these young children. They were scratching at this window, and I thought, what's going on here? And suddenly. And there's smoke and things, and suddenly and it was a film called Salem's Lot, early Stephen King film, and I was terrified. I can still feel the scratching of the window, and it really touched me. I mean, more than touched me, it scared the living daylights out of me, and I ran back upstairs. And I think at that age, we've all got a slight over-imagination. And I remember after that, running from the bed to the bathroom, and is something in the corner? Is it going to grab you and pull you under the bed, or what's lurking there in the shadows? So no, I had a very over-imagination sort of thing going on at that time, but I used to love watching horror movies, and I probably saw films a little bit too young. Nothing terrible. I mean, I remember first seeing Alien or The Thing. I mean, early John Carpenter films, I used to love The Fog, Halloween, all of those films. I mean, I was probably 12, 13, 14. I mean, I was under 18, I've got to be honest. But yes, I have a very soft spot for horrors. It's always the old dark house at the top of the hill, or it's the curiosity of what's behind that door, or what's behind in that house, or what's going on there. And again, I have a soft spot for werewolves. I remember seeing a film called The Beast Must Die, where they even have a werewolf break, halfway through, where they have to decide who's the werewolf. I think that's fascinating. That's Peter Cushing. So yes, I mean, zombie. I mean, I think I have a penchant for werewolves, and probably more than zombies. But I love all of them. And I think again, for me, and there's something that I really love about Unwelcome, is that I think there's a period where horror's got a bit gratuitous, and horror's sort of lost the human element. Because if you look back at all the great horrors, the 50s or the 60s or the 70s, they're very character-based, they're very emotionally based. And then even into the 80s, and then I feel that, as not a generalisation, but sort of gore and sort of being the nastiest, or this sort of took over, and we sort of lost, in some of the genres, some of that emotional effect. And I think that's why I love Unwelcome so much, because again, I think at the root it's a husband and wife journey of how they both react to something that happens to them in different ways, and how their reaction can then change. And so I like that, and I think all good horror movies are very much rooted in that. So yes, I mean, throughout the years I've collected horror movies, and I think that's probably why John hired me, is because very quickly within our first 15 or 20 minutes of talking, and we started to chat about old horror movies, that we both realised we had quite a synergy going. And we just knew exactly what each other meant when we talked about that idea or that effect. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah. What has it been like shooting a film during COVID? Well, listen, I mean, firstly, it was such an honour and such a privilege to be asked to make a film during this terrible year for all of us. I think the pandemic, I mean, obviously there are some pros to people's ways of life changing and things, but overall, I take my hat off that, I mean, Janine, and Piers, Janine, all of them, to sort of go through and knowing the risks involved and all the extra work involved. And I have to big shout out to Kate as well, that to actually put a film on during COVID is no mean feat. And I think they all did an amazing job. And I think when you look back at it, yeah, I feel so privileged and lucky to have worked, because sitting at home, I mean, as a freelancer, your work schedule and sort of the ups and downs of the business, you know, it's sort of emotionally tough enough sometimes, but then to sort of being told, as I have some friends who've been sat at home for a year, haven't worked, it's been really hard. So I thought, you know, I mean, how lucky am I? Not only lucky, I'm so lucky to have got this opportunity to make this film, but how lucky am I to be working during COVID? So practically, I mean, I can't lie. I think that the trickiest thing for me was wearing the masks, with everybody wearing masks, including John, the director. Obviously, you know, through our eyes, you emotionally, you get lots of signals through seeing people's faces. So communications, you struggle sometimes with communications, especially some of the sets quite dark, and you're sort of looking, peering to see what they're thinking or not. And so that makes it a little tricky. But to be honest with you, overall, I mean, it made it a little slower at times, but I mean, everybody was really good. I thought everybody was really good. And in some ways, maybe it brought us more all together. I don't know. I mean, it's a tricky one to answer that. But no, so I mean, I don't see any negatives to it, because as I said, I think it was wonderful for us to work. And I think it was wonderful for everybody to give it a go, because it would have been much easier probably to say, oh, well, let's just shelve it and come back in a year. And then by that time, you know, Hannah wouldn't have been able, or Doug, or whoever would, you know. So I think, yeah, I mean, I look back now and think, thank God.
My name's Paddy Eason. I'm the visual effects supervisor.
My name's George Meyer. On the Unwelcome, I was mocap camera operator and I guess VFX editor for Automatic.
The approach for the red caps was worked out with Jon Wright. Jon likes to do things in an old school way sometimes. You know, he's got a love for 1980s genre films, and we're kind of aware of the fact that people don't like to think that things are CGI, even if, you know, maybe they are. So it's a conscious approach of trying to achieve the red caps with as much real filmed material as possible. So that was the approach we took. You know, Jon's references, I'm sure, will be all kinds of Amblin films, and you know, everyone loves The Thing and Alien and so on. Even those are different kinds of movies. But you know, I think that's where we're coming from, really. Sort of genre classics from the 1980s.
You can tell it's kind of got it wants to keep a real classic look to it. It doesn't want to look too polished, I don't think, either. You want to be able to see that they are these little creatures that they created on set. It's not all computer-generated imagery there. I think people are keen to see that now, or there's a kind of a remembering the old school of film, that you want to see puppetry and Jim Henson-style characters that everyone loves, and I think that's exactly what they were trying to recreate as well. The techniques we used to create the red caps, we still wanted to have a lot of motion control in there, particularly for the facial expressions. So we did mocap recording with Rick, the actor, performing every single character of the red caps. And this was done with a very basic rig, especially for, we had to contend with budget-wise to kind of keep it simple, to keep it we can just roll and roll and roll. So this very basic rig that has a rig that comes down like that with the camera down there, light that just shines on him, and we're able to let Rick just go through every single character being these crazy little individual red caps. This then allows you to put what Rick is doing facially, so every kind of little eyebrow tweak or little lip that goes up like that while this character is screaming or even not really doing much is picked up. That then gives you a great basis when you're putting that into the 3D face that we create. So you're putting Rick's face as an actor, as he probably knows all these characters far better than anyone else, because he's been in the mind of them for literally in the suit of one of them or a few of them. We're then able to translate even the little bits, the nuances in that, into our 3D sculpts and our 3D characters for the effects once they become shots. So really wanting to keep it, again, I guess what we said earlier, keep it in the as real as possible, despite them being 3D faces. There is some human facial interaction there that just looks great for them once they become the 3D asset.
And one thing I've noticed Jon saying when we're looking at work in progress and looking at shots, He particularly likes it if he says, "Oh, that one almost looks like a really good animatronic." It's like that's the point he's trying to hit in a way. You know, we don't want it to look like in a sense, too much like a real goblin. In a sense, we're trying to make it look like we've kind of done something really, really clever with putting animatronic heads on children or something, which is totally the opposite of what we're doing. For making the red caps work, I mean, we've used a number of different approaches, and one of the lessons of visual effects that I've learned over the years is that if you use just one technique throughout, then there's a danger that the audience will kind of spot it, and then the bubble is popped, you know, and people don't believe it anymore because they kind of know what the trick is. So if you use a number of tricks from, you know, even within one shot, or change it from shot to shot within the scene, then people don't really know where to look for the joins or what the trick is, and they start to believe, you know, suspend their disbelief. So with this, you know, we are doing CG animation on the faces, which is driven by a real actor. So that's sort of perhaps what you might expect with a modern visual effects related movie. But the actual red cats themselves are regular sized people. So basically stunt performers. So, you know, I think our tallest guy was 6 foot something. Our smallest performer was 4'11", but they're you know, average-sized humans, and then filmed them in such a way that they appear half-sized in frame. People sometimes think that's a kind of a complicated thing to work out, but actually, in many ways, it's extremely simple. It's much more simple than you might think. And when I explained it to some of the people on the crew, they were a bit suspicious. They were like, "Surely it's got to be more complicated than that." But it isn't. You simply put the camera twice as far away, and people end up looking half-sized. Just to prove that, we did little tests with Jon Wright, the director's help, because, you know, he wanted us to also be able to prove to everyone that this worked. So we had Rick Warden dancing, and then we moved the camera twice as far away, and Rick Warden moved across a little bit and danced again. And then you put the two things together, you know, and you end up with Rick and a little half-size Rick dancing side by side. So with a static camera, that's relatively straightforward. You just do your measurements and work things out. If the camera moves, then you've got to double the size of the camera move and everything. But it's as long as you do your maths and your kind of groundwork, it still works out. So what I'm saying is that we've got two tricks going there, really. The one trick is like having actors shrunk down to half their size, put in scenes with normal sized people, and we've also and they're wearing big, beautiful silicone rubber goblin heads that help their performance, and that gives us ears and the backs of heads and the hoods and all the rest of it. And then we've got modern CGI faces moving in ways that are impossible for silicone heads to move. And then the final little trick, the third one of our little tricks we're using, is that we're playing with speed a little bit as well. So small things tend to move a little bit more faster, you know, and conversely big things move slower. But people are more used to thinking of filming, say, a big giant or something, and you'd film that giant in slow-mo. Same thing is true for little things. They tend to scuttle and so on. So the red caps are just sped up a little bit. Not perhaps so much that you'd really think about it, but it just makes them look more childlike and small and slightly kind of unpleasant and spidery perhaps sometimes. And that was another little bit of kind of maths and groundwork we had to do just to get their performances working correctly with the sped up nature of their movement.
Films and styles that have gone into creating the red caps, they wanted it to have that kind of classic look, but to be in that sort of modern era of having more facial expression. So I think Gremlins, we spoke about a second ago, you can really tell that it's got some Gremlins influence in there. But also for maybe the humour. But I could see that John would probably have a lot of kind of references to do that, but something original or something kind of like creepy with the red caps.
Well, I think it's hard to avoid Harry Potter, really. You know, the high point of a lot of that practical meets CGI work was through the Harry Potter films and the Gringotts, goblins and so on. All that stuff's great. So, you know, I'm sure. And we should mention Sean Harrison, who designed and built the prosthetic heads, which the CG faces are based on. He worked on those films and many other big films. So, yeah. I mean, I think folklore as well. As much as films, I think it's sort of illustrations from children's books and so on is where we're coming from, really. Another strong reference that John mentioned that we've followed through on, I think, a little bit in terms of process, is Spike Jonze's Where the Wild Things Are. which is a cracking film. I really like it. And what we liked about that film is the combination of CG enhanced faces with very obviously practical suits and processes, you know, good interaction between human actors and the you know, giant puppet, whatever it is you're doing. We were doing little puppets, they were doing giant ones. But yeah, Where the Wild Things Are was a strong reference, I think.
Am I a horror creature fan? Yeah, I'd say I love horror, like creature features. Isn't that a kind of term for it as well? But I mean, that could be from, like Jaws is a creature feature, isn't it? But you barely see the creature until 3/4 of the way through. And anything that kind of that adds this kind of fantasy element with a creature, I enjoy. You know, sometimes I want to watch a film and for it to be an absolutely unrealistic creature in there that takes me away from any kind of real world interaction and fantasy, I guess, as well. You know, what other examples are there of creature feature horror specific ones?
Well, The Thing is the daddy.
Yeah, I guess The Thing is the kind of is that the one that you're saying that people want everything to look like The Thing, but in terms now, it's probably actually not that good.
Well, no, it is. It's still the effects are great.
Brilliant. Okay.
It's not a very good film.
Ooh, disagree there. I disagree with just about the character development in that.
And a bit dull. This is one for the future historians, isn't it? Yes. Working on a film during COVID. It wasn't too tough. There was a big upside for me in the sense that I got my own office, which never happens. Visual effects, you struggle to get a chair, let alone a table, or even an entire porter cabin. But because of the rules about people having to work separately and stuff, we got our own huge porter cabin. With myself sat at one end of the desk with a chair, and my assistant right down the other end of the porter cabin. No,
COVID for me was being back home for the majority of it, so not even office work from home.
But that was an upside, having a proper office. But with day-to-day on set, it's just a bit annoying, really, just having to have a mask on all the time. But it just means you weren't able to hang out with people, and you know, working on a film is like any other work in the sense that a lot of the communication happens unofficially, you know, in moments between other things, and a film set is mostly hanging around waiting anyway for most people. And those are the times when you would just sidle up to somebody and sit and chat, and in between the pleasantries, you'd also get some vital information or explain your own plan to somebody and work things out. But if you're all supposed to be 2 meters apart, it's kind of hard to do that. So the communication became a little tougher in that sense. But I don't think it had any real downside to the production. There weren't any big mess-ups that I noticed caused by lack of communication. I just think it meant everyone had to be a bit slower and a bit more careful, and you weren't really allowed to loiter around the set when you weren't really required. You're supposed to go off to your little den, which is a bit strange.
Hello, I'm Rick Warden. The role I have in Unwelcome grew somewhat. So I guess on paper I'm Red Cap Chief, but that's both a literal description of who I play as an actor, and it's also a more general description of what I ended up doing in a second unit directing capacity as well. So I guess Red Cap Chief, that's me. Unwelcome is a story about Jamie and Maya, who are newlyweds, I believe. Certainly they are expecting, which is very exciting news for them, at the beginning of the film. And they are partly ejected from their urban setting, but they get the chance to escape to a very rural Irish setting. And they face their own type of unwelcome there. What attracted me to Unwelcome initially, well, the elephant in the room here is John, but then I read the script. I thought the script was great, and I said to John, this is a bit, I don't know whether to divulge or not, I said to John, I think you need me involved in this. And John said, no, I definitely don't need you involved in this. This is a stunt job for the Red Caps. And I said something to the effect of, you need an actor with these stunt people. It was less to do with getting things right, and it was drawing a Red Cap map, really, in ways in which they shouldn't go wrong. Almost, we talked about me doing a boot camp, really, for the Red Caps. How much did I know about the red caps before I started working on the film? I don't think I even knew what a red cap was. I guess I took them as gremlins, stroke goblins. Yeah, the distinction that you make is between the performance as an actor and, in a way, for me, the distinction you make is between my individual sort of attack on characters. So let's start with the acting one. And I've done my homework on this, because it's actually quite complicated. And there are kind of 6 stages. I read the script, had an exciting response to the script. Then John sort of jokingly suggested what I really need is somebody to direct second unit, but obviously you can't do that, Rick, because you're an actor. And okay, maybe we can get you on board as an actor, and maybe your idea is good. Maybe we should have an actor amidst these red cap stunt people, because mostly what they're doing is these violent stunts. But actually, yes, now you come to mention it, there are characterful scenes where stunts aren't required, and maybe I do need an actor there, so we'll get you on board in that capacity. Okay, and these 6 stages, the red cap stages. The first for me, after a long, I went to see John and we had a big chat in his, what was it? It was like a log cabin he was living in, wasn't it? Out in the middle of the country. So once I'd got his sensibility, and remember we share an awful lot, me and John anyway. Physics, weirdly, was my first port of call. And that meant that I went away to my brother's house up in Stratford and I started to sort of imagine for myself the physics of performance of something that is, how tall are they, Mark? 2.5 feet tall? So even smaller than me. So I started to think in terms of physics about how that had affected performance. And that doesn't just mean in terms of eye lines. So I'd go to my brother's, landing and I would shoot with my iPhone off his landing, my daughter, who is much smaller than me, and just work out the physics. So that was part one. Then there were tests. We started to do tests which tested that physics. So with John, we did a dance test. John has a memory, I don't know if he's shared it, about me dancing to Superstition by Stevie Wonder from, I don't know how many years ago. So we did a dance test of Big Rick dancing to Stevie Wonder, and then red cap size Rick dancing to Stevie Wonder. There is a science involved. So Rick danced to Stevie Wonder at normal speed. Red cap Rick, and looked down during this test. Red cap Rick looked up to Rick and danced at 3 or 4 different speeds we did it at. And then the smart people, Paddy is the smart person, VFX dude, sped me up. So that was tests like that. And alongside those tests, we've done physics, haven't we? Alongside those tests, we started to toy with vocal tests too. So we had to speed up my voice. There were whole discussions about how many semitones, what would happen to my voice if I spoke normally, and there's an accent involved as well, obviously. So once we'd nailed down locally where John liked the accent, I would do certain bits of the dialogue, and John would send them away to I think he was called Jeremy, the chap, I might be wrong, who sped them up to different speeds or pushed them up different semitones, and John would listen to them. Essentially, it's about pleasing John, isn't it? But I was there to try and bounce ideas off about what I liked the sound of and what I didn't. Once I'd met the other performers, 7 other performers, one of whom was more of an actor than a stunt person, Paul Warren, we then started to do tests, me and Paul, of specific scenes where we'd incorporate both of what I've just described. So me and Paul shot, I hope I've still got them actually, but 2 or 3 salient scenes. The sniff scene, a couple of the obvious scenes, with Paul and me, incorporating the physics to make sure we'd got it right. And I think I did all the vocal stuff then. So the third thing was logistics and stunt performers, working out a through line for each of those characters, because I think there are 14 red caps in all that you actually see play. Initially, there was talk of many more, and then when you whittled it down, and then the big up here is for Terry, the first AD, because I spent a weekend doing a red cap map of what each one of them would do, what their character arc was, and then only to come in the following week and be told 90% of it Terry had done. Even more than that, 95% of it was right. There were a couple of things where I was like, hold on, that red cap can't be there, because actually something horrendous has happened to them in the scene before. But by and large, he'd done that. So logistics, this is so long, this answer. It's okay. Bear with me. Listen, you did ask. Okay, so where was I? Physics, tests, logistics and the red caps, masks. is huge. They're weighty. And you've already had those. We went out to a place in Watford and got, what's it called? You get sort of mapped and you get put in this terrifying room. You ever heard of this room? This is fantastic, this room. It's completely white, the room. It's small. People that you don't know come in as a performer. You sit there and they paste your face with, I don't know what it is, completely, so that you can only breathe through your nose, right? So you're sitting there like that in a white room. I'll tell you what the kicker is in a minute. And you can't move for quite a while, at least half an hour, I think. It gets burning hot in there initially, and it's solid. And all I kept thinking of in the room was, what if they just didn't come back in? What if they don't come back in? How will I get out of this thing? Anyway, they told me later that apparently you can just sort of split them down the middle and they come off very easily. That's not what it feels like. But the terrifying thing about that room is this room in Watford has all of the most famous people, famous actors on the planet in the room as white faces, the real casts. And when I say the most famous people in the planet, I mean literally, it's Hopkins there, it's Judi Dench there, it's Michael Jackson there. It just goes on and on and on. They've got all the most... Mine will not end up there. But as a performer, it's kind of fascinating, secret little room. Anyway, I digress. Masks. When you finally get your mask back, the point is that those contours are precise. But it's heavy and it's weighty. So that's the next phase. Then it comes to shooting it, which I played Red Cap Chief. So amidst 8 of us, I only ever try on my one mask, remember? The other performers, except for Paul Warren, who plays Sniff, the other performers all have 2 masks each. So that's 6 times 2 is 12, plus me and Paul is 14. I had to, unfortunately, pull myself out a little bit as a performer, because I literally, with 5 or 6 of us there, I couldn't get in the mask and be heard properly, because there's earpieces involved, and I couldn't make myself understood. So I ended up directing alongside Paddy. And then number 6, thank God we're there, you're very relieved, is in post, faces and voices. So all that happened in the shoot was the physicalisation of all of the red caps, and in post, I facialised and vocalised all of them. When it comes to the individual movements of each individual red cap, that's largely dictated by the strengths of each of those people, of Edward or Michael or Don. When I met Rochelle, for example, and she was playing, what's the red cap character who comes in, what did I give her? Cutie, I think we called her. And her movement tiptoed into that scene. When I first saw her do it, I did think, oh no, it's quite good to have variety. By and large, those movements are dictated by the strengths of those 6 stunt performers. And Paul, remember, was a slightly different case because Paul's strengths are in creature work. I would not say that I am a horror creature feature fan. Although I bet if we talked for long enough, you would say, oh, but you have seen that. Oh, and you have seen that. Do you know who really is a horror creature feature fan? It's Paul Warren. And it was him who introduced me, alongside John, actually, which was footage from a film shot in I believe, the 1980s. That's it. Yeah. Well, they shared that sequence with me, and Paul knew all of that stuff backwards, so he's far more of a creature feature dude than me. It's pretty exhausting that there's not been any kind of centralised response to this from the film industry. So everybody's got a slightly different, nuanced approach to it. And, oh, you've had those tests, have you? Well, we won't accept those tests. You'll have to do these tests instead. Oh, you're using that mask. No, we've stopped using that mask. We use these masks. I mean, literally, I've been handed specific types of masks. What drives me a bit nuts about COVID is that it's given PhDs to everyone in bloody COVID, doesn't it?
Oh, I know far more about COVID than you do. Oh, this production, we know all about it.
This is something we can't see, taste, smell, hear. It's a pretty mysterious thing, COVID, and I get a little bit stroppy about that. Having said that, on Unwelcome, it was pretty early days for COVID. I'm gobsmacked that we got it, given that there was a break in the middle. There was a tense couple of weeks when John wrote a generic but private, a personal email, really, not private, but personal to everybody involved, saying realistically, if we have another lockdown of the set, we won't get this film. So we have to get it. So if you can lessen the chances of getting COVID, please lessen those chances. Did it give it its own... I would imagine, because I feel this way about film and what we do, that it probably coloured the product, and not necessarily in a bad way. I'd imagine there's an all-round tension on the screen. I haven't seen enough of it to know that that's true, but I'd be interested to know creatively what happens to all sorts of projects that were made under those kind of restrictions. Restrictions can set you free, can't they, in weird ways, because there's an elation to doing stuff. And I definitely felt that with the stunts. When you're involved and have seen them rehearsed, boy, they're thrilling, man. They're a different planet, aren't they, what those people do? I remember Edward doing the jump off the spire. I was, if you'll excuse that, I was high, really, after. I was giddy like an idiot. When he did it, I was like... And he did it for the first time. I was like, I can't believe that you just did that. He's miles up when he does that. He's a long way up when he does that jump, and he literally, and then he did a sort of, I'll do my other version of it that's a bit flasher, where he went off backwards and then lands on mats and then flick-flacks off the thing. Then he did a straight, I think he did it 3 times, like just walking in the park. To me, I was completely elated by it. And I don't know whether COVID was part of that too. It's just, look at the abandon with which we're getting to behave here. All these people locked up and we're making crazy stories. But I think definitely COVID forged a siege mentality. And I'd be surprised if, given the nature of some of the product, some of the film, that siege mentality will play. It felt like that, didn't it, when you were at the hangar? It felt like, right, we're in our private world and we're getting to make a fairy story. We're lucky.
I'm Jo Vitalis, and I'm the editor. The influences I bring to the edit are obviously a lot of films that I watched throughout my life, but I don't really bring anything prepared to the edit. I mostly just look at the rushes and read the script 100 times and sort of try to create the best rhythm and tone possible for the film. The tone shifts throughout this film, so it starts really straight up horror and then slows down into a sort of more like a drama and ramps up at the end. I watched a few films in preparation for this film, like Cape Fear, Strangers, Dark Water, but I don't think I really feel and sort of editing style or something like that when it comes to the edit. It's the direction, the pictures, the tone that John and Hamish create on set. I try to go from that and make it the best thing possible. I'm actually not a horror creature feature fan, I don't think. I am more now after editing this film, I have to say, but I think I scare too easily, so I'm not really a fan of jump scares as such. But I do like thrillers, and I do like really creating tension and suspense. That's really, really fun, and also really fun to watch. It was great working with John. We had a wonderful working relationship because we worked on something beforehand. Even though that was comedy, we kind of had that ease of working with each other coming to this edit, so that was really lovely. Interestingly, the tonal shifts were quite easy to create in the edit, even though there were quite a few, and it's sort of silly at times, but also has to be really scary. For some reason, it seemed to have all fallen into place. It didn't need a lot of saving from my part. When the visual effects aren't in the scene, can be really tricky, but I think you just need a lot of imagination, and I like to put a lot of sound effects and as much music in as early as possible to kind of really create the mood and to know what we're actually going to see there once the visual effects are done. And when they are done, it's magical still to me to see that. As an editor, working in COVID was different. For us, it was a bit inconvenient, so the assistant editor was working from home, which is a bit inconvenient because it's better to just be in the same place and just to pop over to the next room and sort of work everything out rather than talking to them all day long on the telephone. But other than that, it's been fine because we could work together with John in the same room, which was essential, I think. You kind of can do it remotely, but I think it's really important to be in the same room and create it together. There wasn't anything I saw in the footage that made me think this is different because of COVID. No, I don't think so. I think it felt normal, or as normal as it can be.